Open our eyes, open our eyes to you, O loving God. Open our hearts. Would anyone like to come up for a story this morning? I see Ava's on her way. Knees aren't working this morning.
My knees are sore from skiing yesterday.
Your knees are sore from skiing. Well, you have an excuse. Mine are just sore because I'm getting old. I'm going to tell you a story this morning. I've actually told you this story a couple of times, but before I tell it, I wanted to say something about story, because sometimes stories are written and told because they are about something that actually happened. So they're true in the sense that something actually happened and people tell that story. Other stories didn't actually happen, but we imagine certain things and we write stories about them. And this one today is one of those. That it's a great story and it has a lot to tell us about God and Jesus and all kinds of things. But probably is a story that came out of someone's imagination.
I think I know which one it is.
Do you? Well, we'll see.
Maybe,
So, can you just give me a little bit more room here, Ava? That would be great, because this story takes a bit of space. And it begins where a lot of our stories begin.
the desert.
In the desert, the Holy Land, in the place where Jesus was born and lived and taught people about God, taught people a different way to live, a way that would make them happier. And when we meet Jesus in this story, he has been traveling maybe a year, maybe 2 years, we're not really sure, but he's been traveling for quite a long time from one town to the other throughout the land. And everywhere he went, people would come to hear what he had to say and to be healed and to hear about God. And one day, Jesus decides he needs to get away and do something a little different. He's been going town to town. He's tired, so he takes 3 of his followers, 3 of his disciples. He takes Peter and James and John. And he takes them early in the morning before the sun has even come up. He takes them to a mountain. Yeah, he takes them to a mountain. And he wants to go up the mountain because he knows there they'll be alone, that people won't follow them. So he goes up the mountain and they go up with him. And after they got there, the sun came up over that mountain and started to shine, and so they could see. But the way the story goes, the strangest thing happened. Right before their eyes, Jesus suddenly looked different. All of a sudden, his face was glowing, brightly glowing, and his clothes became dazzling white. Right in front of him. And then, as if that wasn't strange enough, all of a sudden, 2 men appeared. 2 men that had died hundreds of years before. 2 men appeared.
Oh my God,
Moses who was one of the first prophets of Israel, and Elijah, who was one of the other prophets of Israel. And all of a sudden, they were there, out of history, right with Jesus. Imagine. Well, Peter, James, and John were terrified. They'd never seen anything like this. And they were so terrified that they started to run down the mountain. And then, right before their eyes, a big white cloud appeared. And the cloud came up and down over the mountain. And the disciples were even more scared than they'd been before. And as the cloud covered them, all of a sudden there was this voice that came out of the cloud, and it said, "This is my son. This is the beloved. Listen to him." And then the cloud disappeared, and there was Jesus just as he had been when they started, back. He wasn't dazzling white anymore. He just looked like he always did. And Jesus went to the disciples and he touched each one of them and said, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. What happened is okay, and I'm okay. But when we go back down the mountain," he said, "I don't want you to tell anyone what you saw here. You have to keep this a secret." I wonder what you think about this story.
Why did Jesus want to go up to the mountain to see two prophets from the past when he already knew everything about them because he's part God?
So why did he already do that when he already knew about them? Yeah. I wonder what happened that made the disciples see Jesus differently. I wonder what happened there.
He was Christ and Christ is purely human.
So they suddenly saw Christ instead of just Jesus, right? I wonder why they were afraid.
Because they had just seen something from the past, and if they told anyone, well, that would be, then everybody would want to get them and maybe kill them.
Well, it was a pretty weird thing, wasn't it, that they saw? Yeah. And I wonder why Jesus told them not to tell anyone what they had seen.
Because they might go after him.
Because they might go after him. Yeah.
Because they might think he's just like a cuckoo.
They might think he's cuckoo. Yeah. Well, that's our very strange story today.
Is it
And,
true?
well, that's for you to figure out. That's for you to figure out. There's certainly true things here. Anyway, we're going to sing a song now called "Bathe Me in Your Light." And maybe we can think about it in terms of the light that the disciples experienced around Jesus. Bathe me in your light. And then you can head off to Children's Church.
That would be actually just a box.